welcome to the Refuge podcast, where we cultivate our faith in the shelter of God's word. I'm your host, Jennifer Elwood. In between podcast seasons, from time to time, I'll be sharing bonus episodes focused on interviewing authors who wrote books that we can't put down. Today's episode is with my friend, Mari Eygabroad, and her book, Living Uprooted, Encouragement for the Ministry Wife, flooded back memories of the years I lived abroad. Her bold encouragement, authentic advice, and heartwarming stories kept me flipping the screen on my Kindle for a few delightful hours on a Sunday afternoon. Her book is not only a treasure trove of enlightening stories, but a practical resource for any woman preparing to enter the mission field. So head under God's perfect refuge with us for a while and listen in to our engaging conversation. Welcome to this special author interview. This is my friend, Mari Eygabroad.
Hello.
And she is currently in the country of Lesotho. Did I pronounce that correctly?
It's Lesotho.
Lesotho.
It's very close. Yeah.
But it's not spelled that way.
It's not.
It's not.
Unless you speak Lesotho.
Well, and I don't. I was like, where is that one? Southern Africa? Okay, where? Because I know where Kenya is, and I know where Uganda is, like, really well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, where is this one in comparison to that? Because I don't know that
We
one.
are completely landlocked by South Africa. South Africa is every border.
Oh, that's all the way
inside South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very small country.
Yes. So anyway, I have recently met Mari through a book study group that I helped co-lead with a friend recently. And she was just showing up and start telling us about her book and all the things that she is doing right now to help missionary wives prepare to go overseas, which I think is just so amazing. And it sounds like there's not a lot of great stuff out there to help women really be prepared for that.
Not a ton.
So, yeah. So, at any rate, I have a few questions to ask her that hopefully you'll all be encouraged by. And so I love in the introduction of your book, you talk about your meticulously laid plans. We're about to get a God-sized edit. And I was like, oh, that is the sticky statement of the century when you are talking about any unexpected thing, really.
Mm-hmm.
But one that comes with a big overseas move is like, because I have experienced this too, is like blow my mind. Because you were planning on like being a single missionary in the Ukraine, and now you're a married missionary in Lesotho. And so can you tell us just a few of the highlights of your story of how that all happened?
Yes. I came to Christ late in my as an adult. So but early in my walk with Christ, I went on a couple of short-term missions trips, and I absolutely fell in love with the thought of missions even. So, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And I think a lot of people do that in short-term, like after short-term mission trips, like, this is what I want to do forever. But I was like, no, I want to serve long-term overseas. And I was part of my testimony is that I was divorced. So it was just me and my dog. And I was like, okay, I was going to school. I was trying to better myself and, put myself in a better position to be single again. And I was going to school to be a physical therapist assistant. And this opportunity just presented itself. It was actually an opportunity to go to Ukraine for a short-term trip. And it was alongside, Honduras, and I think there was one other one, but I can't remember what that one was. So Ukraine actually didn't happen. So I settled for Honduras, which was amazing. So that was not a settling at all. But the folks who were hosting the Ukraine trip, I started talking to them more and getting more information and finding out what's going on there. And there was a school there that was teaching children who had been pretty much abandoned, shunned from society because they were disabled. And so she opened this school. The government actually gave her a facility because they wanted to save face, right? So she had a facility. She wanted someone to help with the kids and teach their caregivers proper care. And so it's like, I could do that. That's perfect for me. And so for the next year, we planned a trip to go just to meet her and see what the job was about. And that trip never happened. I think God had his hand in it, but it got me so excited that I would be moving abroad that when God changed my plans, it wasn't like so shockingly devastating. It was like, okay, so this is different. I'm doing kind of the same thing, but just not where. So yeah, that it was just interesting because like we were planning to go in October and that trip got canceled, but my pastors went to Africa to meet our missionaries or just visit our missionaries in Africa. And then when he came to Lesotho, they decided it was up to them to find Brian a wife. So I happen to be one of the people who are still single at the church. So they started talking, oh, this could be a nice match. So I was not aware of this going on. So this was actually a month before I was supposed to be going to Ukraine, that the trip that got canceled. So when they came back, my pastor pulled me aside and said, Mary, we think you should go to Africa and marry Brian. I was like, wait, what? So, okay, I'm going to make this like, short.
Whatever.
I could go on about that story, but I'll make it short. In the next months, as you know, Brian and I did start talking. You'll have to read the book for the story. So yes, I'm gonna save that. So as we started talking, though, all the doors to Ukraine started closing. Like there was no way that trip could be redeemed. It was like, it just wasn't going to happen. Things just started falling apart. And so it was just kind of an indicator like, nope, I'm shifting your direction this way. So go this way. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going this way. So, however, I did, Brian's a pilot with Mission Aviation Fellowship, and I did research. I was like, are there any MAF bases near Ukraine? So I could still do this job and still be married. And there aren't. No, there aren't.
Of course not. No.
But it didn't keep me from looking. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a little longer story than
that's okay. That's okay. And you give a lot of great advice in this book. As I was reading through, just from the, perspective of someone who has moved abroad with an infant, like I felt like it was so practical. It was very, very encouraging. It was super authentic. I felt like you didn't hold a lot back. Like you really shared a lot of your story, which was like super scary, but you did it really well.
Oh, good.
I
hopefully it didn't scare anybody.
Yeah. Don't, okay, read this. Don't freak out too much, but
right.
But I think it's important to understand how hard some of these things are that we don't think about when we're getting caught up in the romantic idea of moving abroad.
Yes. Which I did.
Because saying goodbye, brutal. Saying goodbye when you are about to give birth or recently have given birth to the oldest and only grandchild. Oh my, like it
twist that knife a little bit more.
It's an extra situation. And the complications and fatigue that you experience and the need for scheduling rest, the need for, being super direct and communicative about your schedule, about the different things that go on when you come and you visit, because you're not usually just visiting, you are right. And that's its whole own thing, right? Anyway, I just thought all of that was just so perfectly spot on. But I'm assuming that by now you've had a little bit of feedback, maybe from some other missionary wives or some women that are getting prepared. And I'm wondering, What are the things that women are telling you that have been the most helpful that you write about in your book?
Yeah, I did try to make it practical and real. And I literally, like, I was like, I need to tell people about this, but I don't want to scare anybody. But I think the fear of scaring people is what holds a lot of people back from being more open. And
Yeah.
I think if somebody had kind of just said, hey, this is going to be a little harder than you might think. So my idea was to get the practical stuff out of the way, so the spiritual is, you're not bombarded by practical and spiritual. You can't
Right.
really separate the two. But I think, though, someone has mentioned the spiritual warfare chapter was impactful, and I appreciated that, because that was one thing that I think could have been emphasized a little bit more in training, just how real it is and how much more palpable it is in a foreign culture from your own. Because I think one thing is, like, the familiarity is lifted, so you kind of see a little bit more than what's going on the surface. Right. So I think when we got here, we were just like, oh, there's something in the spiritual realm going on. And I know it goes on in America, but we are so comfortable where we are. Often we, like, as Americans, we can't see it. Right. So, but I think foreigners can see it, right?
I think that happens a lot. And I think also when you're in your familiar environment, there's like kind of a cushion around you. Like most people would say they have a home church, maybe a community group that they've got a group of people that they can just text. They know they're going to be awake because they're in the same time zone, and they know that within minutes they're going to be prayed for. Right. And when you're gone and in a different place, like, everything is amplified.
It's true. Like, who you call when it's like 3 a.m, where your friends are. You're like, oh wait, yeah.
I know. I feel like God saved me from that aspect of being so lonely when I moved to the UK, because years before I had gone to visit a friend in Spain and found my little friend named Anne. Came along to Barcelona to meet up with me when I met my friend Linda, and I followed them to Santiago de Compostela. And Anne just like was a constant there. And I was like, I got to stay in touch with this lady. And then years later, when I moved to the UK, she was 2 hours away.
God was providing before you even knew you needed it.
Like years before. And she had gone on, and she was talking about David all the time. And then she married him. And because of that, she became, now she's a UK citizen because of Brexit and all that. But I just, like, that was such a huge lifeline for me. And
for sure.
I can't imagine, but so many people move and they don't have that. And to be prepared for that, or at least to be connecting with someone that's already in country, I would imagine is like a huge thing that's really important.
Yeah, that was another part that I got feedback on, was the suggestion because now it's so easy to communicate virtually. So we actually, with some of the new families that come, we set up a WhatsApp group so they can ask all the questions. Can I get this there? Can I do this? Can you guys, check this out for me? Should I bring this? Should I bring my KitchenAid? What should I do here? So do I need a transformer for this? So all those practical questions that just take the stress off when you're packing up for an overseas move. So your heart is a little lighter. You're not stressed about so much stuff. And then when you get there, you kind of know these people already, because one, they know everything that you may or may not be bringing. And then, you've been talking to them about, what's the culture like, what's culturally appropriate to wear. And then, so you kind of get an idea of the culture, the team that you're going to. Now, the downside is there are one gal that read my book. She is very much alone. She's with YWAM, and it's just her and her husband where they're serving. So she doesn't have that community, but in the city, she has a community of expats. It just takes her a while she doesn't get to visit often. So that does become a struggle. And I know that's a reality, but that's a reality that I can't speak to. So that's why it's not in the book, but it is definitely a reality that we need community, a community of expatriates, meaning, someone who is not a citizen of the country we're living in, but we need that community of people who are like us, that understand and can let us vent or give us advice or just pray with us because they understand what we're going through. So.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. When I moved to London so long ago that like the internet really wasn't quite a thing yet. Like Facebook hadn't really taken off, or social media and things like that. And so it was so difficult to connect to people. And I imagine like now, even in comparison to when you moved, probably there's just so many more tools.
It is.
Things like that. But well, I love that. And I'm glad that like this already is finding a home with so many people and helping
That's great.
and connect others to be able to, find other Jesus loving people in a community that will just really lift them up and support them. So when you've been going, I know you in the book, you talk about several different really hard things that you've gone through. And I wonder if you could share a Bible verse that has been your refuge and anchor throughout your journey as a missionary.
I honestly, they have changed with the seasons. But I would say the most recent, probably for the last few years, are all the verses that I could possibly find on trust. So Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Yep, that's the one. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Because there are so many things that we've gone through. I was like, well, I don't understand why this is happening. I don't understand what's going on. But as we've walked through things, we can see God's hand looking back. We can see him holding us up, lifting us up. And even though we maybe couldn't feel it during, walking through the crisis, but we can see it looking back. And I think that is very important, to be able to look back and say, oh yes, God had us in this. He did not let us down. We can trust him. So a lot of, I would say, okay, we've been here almost 10, it's almost 10 years. It's 9 years, I think, this year. And the whole time it's just been a lesson in trust and having faith that he is gone before us. He is with us, and he was with us in the past. And we can lean on that. We can hang our hat on that. So,
yeah, I love that. I think that is just so important. I mean, for so many different, trials and things like that. But I think that there's a bit of extra when you're in, I would imagine Lesotho right now is now your familiar territory. Because I know you've shared that you're, that like in your journey now that you're getting ready for another transition. And
we are
really hard to imagine too, right?
Yeah. And I'm trying to prepare myself for that. And I've talked to so many people who have made that transition. So yes, we are getting ready to move back to America. We are supposed to be back last year. We've had some setbacks. So
what, COVID? What?
yeah, that on top of this, on top of that, on top of that. So it's not just one thing,
Right.
But I've talked to so many people who have made the transition from the mission field back to America, who are still struggling even years later with the reverse culture shock. And so I'm actually interviewing people as we're getting ready to go to say, okay, what's going on here? How can we prepare? So it's that I'm trying to get that manual that I wish I'd had when I came over before I go back.
So you're already working on book 2. Like this is your book is like fresh out and you're like, okay, now this next one is on its way.
Yep. But I have to wait. I have to wait until I experience it, because I cannot speak to something I haven't experienced. So, so sorry, y'all have to wait until
but
go through this.
But people can follow along with you, because I think that you're probably going to be sharing and talking about this. And I think
Yes.
There's probably something to be said about that. So how can people grab a copy of your book, and where can we follow along with your story?
Well, let's do the website first.
Okay.
Is just my name, marieygabroad.com. And I do have links to the different areas they can buy books. It's on Amazon and Redemption Press and Barnes and Noble. Currently, it's just the ebook, but the print book is coming. I just got my proof. I'm so excited. So here's what it looks like.
That's exciting.
So the print book is coming. So I've had people ask for that. So I said, yes, let's do it. But that should be out at least by June. So that's I think that's the end date. So it might be earlier. We'll have to see.
That is awesome. Yeah. And where are you on the socials?
Social, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Not a ton, but I try to post a bit. You know, at least links to the blog posts and such. So I will try to get better at that, though. Well, I'm on Facebook now.
Yes, you can get the ebook now. Yes. And I'll have all of that stuff in the show notes and links and things like that. But I am going to tell you right now that I am going to get paperback copies for every missionary that we follow and support and all that kind of stuff when it comes out in paperback, because oh my goodness, I think everyone needs to know about this book that is getting ready to set off into this particular journey. Because people need to like ask ahead if they're able to buy ice cream when they're pregnant.
Oh, yes.
When I read that, I was like,
yes. Should I tell the story?
That was about as shocking as moving to Japan and realizing that I could buy like a giant can of beer on a vending machine in the street. Like,
yeah.
Like there are just things that surprise you out of the blue that you just don't know until you know, right?
Right.
And to be
until you experience it, you're like, no, that really didn't happen, did it?
You're like, no. And the manager said, no, we cannot do this. And it's like, it's like ordering sushi in the US. Like, are you supposed to do that?
Right.
I don't know. We're
supposed to be
that's our sandwiches. I don't know.
That's not the only time I was refused something. And one time was just because I looked pregnant. And I was like, excuse me?
No. You're like, no, really?
I was like, there's no baby in there. Give me that.
Yeah. Mary, thank you so much. This was just delightful. And
yes, thank you.
Hope that a lot of people received encouragement and maybe some memories flooding back if they've experienced a move abroad themselves. And well, thank you so much. And
thanks for having me, Jenny.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we will see all of you in the Refuge Bible Study community another time.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining Mary and I as we talked about the ups and downs and God-sized edits that come from moving abroad for Jesus. I so highly encourage you to pick up a copy of Living Uprooted for any missionary wives you're connected to. It will be an invaluable resource for their journey. I hope you'll join me beginning May 11th for season 2 of the Refuge podcast as we take on the topic of finding rest in Christ for 7 weeks. As the world is speeding up again after the forced slowdown of 2020, I think it's important for us to capture some of the lessons we learned when life decelerated. God helped me find 7 guests to encourage us to take refuge in God's word as we seek to slow down, pursue deep inner shalom, and allow God to restore us for intimate relationship with him and the good works he has planned. You've been listening to the Refuge podcast, where we cultivate our faith in the shelter of God's word.